Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. I'm joined by the illustrious, or whatever term you want to use for Tom Dienhart, experienced, seasoned. He is coming to the end of his availability, because he's going to be in practice for the last time. He was in practice Friday for the last time before the Boilermakers take the field September 1st against Penn State. We'll talk about that today, and also a little bit of a breakdown of just kind of where he thinks the Boilermakers are after 8 practices to date, right? And I want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel and the Boiler Up Bar. Tom and I will be putting on a show of great magnitude on August 31st. It'll be Wednesday night live instead of Thursday night live, Facebook Live at the Purdue Union Boiler Up Bar. So we'll have some fun with that as well. And looking forward to getting this season started. And we have made the decree, too, that there'll be no NIL discussion on this one. We're going to talk just football. And that's a good thing, because there's a lot to be talking about Purdue. And you've been through 8 practices, Tom. Is there an overriding tone, now that you've kind of it seems to me to be that there has, outside of 2 or 3 key injuries, 2 key injuries especially, is there really a whole lot of a theme so far to Purdue's 8 practices to date?
I don't know if there's a theme. Like you said, if you were to write a book or have a headline, it would be the 2 injuries that were sustained this last week.
Sure.
Season-ending injuries to Garrett Miller and DeMarge Lewis. More on DeMarge Lewis in a minute, but yeah, otherwise, no. I mean, they'll have their first scrimmage Saturday, and things start getting real at that point. Overall, it just seems to be so far so good. As far as the eyeball test, Alan, Jeff Rom continues to remake the roster, and more bigger bodies, especially in the trenches. I think maybe that's one observation, one takeaway is the depth on the defensive line in particular, and the offensive line depth isn't quite there yet, but I think there are more guys they're comfortable playing out. And I think there's 8 linemen they're comfortable playing. And talking to some of the linemen today, and the line coach Dale Williams, they seem cautiously optimistic. Could be one of their better lines in the last couple of years with a little bit more experience. And hopefully, Alan, they hope to be a little bit more physical and able to get that push in short yardage situations, especially in the red zone.
You talked about, I think, on the radio show this week, Old Black Radio, that typically is on Mondays, was on Wednesday this week. But the fact that the comfort level at 8 guys at that position, any change to that? Does he still think that rotate, not necessarily the rotation, but guys that he's comfortable putting on the field, that number still kind of hold true?
Yeah. I think that's still the case. Left to right, I think your starters are tentatively Eric Miller and Spencer Holstidge on the left side, with Gus Hartwig snapping. I think you'll see the redshirt freshman Marcus Bowe at right guard, Cam Craig at right tackle. All those guys but Bowe have started games at Purdue. And Marcus Bowe is a guy they're very optimistic and very high on. I think he's their most athletic lineman, about 6'3", 6'4", was a triple basketball player in high school. And I think off the bench, Alan, they also like another redshirt freshman, Maheem Musa.
Yeah.
And the 2 transfers, Sione Finau from Florida International, who's a guard, number 72, a strong guy who's not very tall, but he started games. And then the offensive tackle from Kent State, Daniel Johnson, who started games at Kent State in the MAC, a big guy, Alan. He looks the part. So those are, I think, your top 8 linemen. After that, some guys have played, Alan, Jared Bazinski, Josh Kaltenberger, players of that ilk. But I think, those 8 I mentioned up the top are probably the top 8 going into the year.
You talk about the 2 injuries, and of course, in camps that almost always happens. I can't think of many camps where you haven't had. I really can't think of all that many camps. I can't name them all, but where you haven't had one season-ending injury. Now, Purdue's had, it appears, 2, though. I don't know. Is Garrett Miller definitely out for the year? But they're both guys are backups, but these are guys that are really important guys to this football team, and Purdue's going to have to do the proverbial next man up to replace them both.
Yeah, here's the deal. Yes, Garrett Miller, his injury was season-ending, Alan. It happened on Tuesday.
Yeah.
No, it happened on Monday. It happened on Monday. Sort of a non-contact injury, just running skelly. Hurt his knee. And Garrett Miller was slated to be the number 2 tight end. He was going to play a lot in tandem with Payne Durham. They were going to form a pretty nice tandem, I think. Mm-hmm. And honestly, Alan, Garrett Miller, even though he wasn't the number 1, probably has the most NFL potential of the Purdue tight ends. He's very athletic, 6'5", 250, can run, good athlete, can catch the ball. We've seen glimpses to this point. He's a redshirt junior. I think this was a year that may have been sort of a breakout for him, but obviously that's over with. It's not going to happen. So next man up is Paul Ferry, the converted quarterback. And I tell you what, Alan, he's impressive. He played in 6 games last year. He started 1, caught a touchdown pass against Indiana.
Right.
Good athlete. He looks good. His body looks good. He's really transformed his body from being a quarterback to a tight end. I think he's still working on being more physical as far as a blocking goes. But don't sleep on Paul Ferry. I think they can make it work with Paul Ferry catching the ball. Sometimes in practice, they'll split him all the way out wide toward the sideline. So he can run and he can catch. He's smart. I give him a lot of credit. You know what, Alan? If that was me, I don't know if I'd have stuck it out.
Yeah.
I came here to be a quarterback, and they tell me that I don't have a future there. Do I want to play tight end? I don't know what I would have done. But Paul Ferry, man, that says a lot about him as a person, doesn't it?
Yeah. One of the beauties of doing this simulcast is I'm doing it on my back porch, and we have a little lawn mowing going on in the background. But you I can hear you and you can hear me, but I just that's part. It's not me. I need to cut the grass too, but I'm not going to do that till tomorrow, I don't think. You look at that, and you've talked to, you've been to a lot of followed Purdue for a long time, but also have seen injuries in camp, and Lewis also in a situation where a guy that going to add depth to that position going to play certainly doesn't help that, even though the defensive line might be as deep as any Purdue defensive line in a long time. I mean, that seems to be a fact, but this is another guy that you're going to have to be able to kind of close ranks to get what you want done at that position.
Yeah. When that injury occurred on Thursday,
right.
The information I got post-practice was Marzier Lewis was probably out for the year. Ankle injury. Well, I've been able to firm up today that he will be out for the year. He suffered a broken left ankle. He's not going to be back. His season's over. And it was described to me that Lewis was kind of considered the quote fifth starter on the defensive line, if you will. Right. He could play nose tackle, could play the 3 technique, a very valuable person on the interior of the defense. A redshirt sophomore who came to Purdue from Indiana last year. Was his first year in West Lafayette, a kid they liked.
Yeah.
So now they got to make do without him, and like you said, Alan, they've got some depth at that spot. I think they know the starters, of course, Lawrence Johnson at nose and Branson Dean at the 3 technique. And by the way, Alan, Branson Dean's been out. He strained his left leg yesterday. Right. Came back to practice with ice and did not work out today. He should be okay, though. And then after your 2 starters, I think at the 3 technique, you're looking at Prince Boyd and Suleiman Paca, with maybe Greg Hudgens helping out and J.P. Dieter. At the nose, I think, behind Lawrence Johnson, you could look at Cole Brevard, the kid from Penn State. Huge body, classic nose tackle body. And then I think, our buddy Mo Monday. Yeah. I think you're going to see Mo play quite a bit on the nose, and maybe DJ Washington too. So that's sort of the next men up on the inside for Purdue's D line. Certainly losing Lewis was a blow, but like you said, it happens. It's part of football, and coaches can't bat an eye, and they got to deal with the adversity and move on.
I'm going to ask you kind of a theoretical question, because you've again covered it, and we've gone from the days of the 80s and 90s where there was 2-a-day practice, and you'd have we're through 8 practices and 20 years ago, you'd be through 16 practices darn near by this time. Just the change in the rules and the fact that they've made it more, maybe less contact. At the end, when you get to that first game and you've watched a ton of football, do you have a better product at the end? Do you think this is actually, I know we know it should be helpful to the health of these guys, and that's a good thing. We're not going back to the two-a-days world, but do you think teams are as ready based on the differences of what you saw maybe 15, 20 years ago and what you see now?
I mean, I think so. Like you said, a lot of that move was done. Move away from 2 days was done with the health and safety of the players in mind. For a long time in the 80s, for sure, maybe the 90s to a degree, summer camp was used to get people in shape, Alan. And
yeah,
these guys are in shape already from the opening whistle of practice number 1. So they're ready to start learning at that point. And with too, Alan, the rules have changed to the point where now players can actually get instruction from coaches in the offseason on the field.
Right.
So my point is, it's not like their learning and coaching never really stops from the end of Thanksgiving until the start of training camp. So I don't know if it's really impacted the preparation of these teams, honestly. Maybe teams don't practice tackling quite as much for a lot of different reasons. Number one, to avoid injury. But so maybe you see some sloppy tackling early on, which can prove to be costly. But otherwise, I guess I don't like to think that the new training camp regimen has really impacted the quality of the game, especially right out of the gate in September.
Yeah, I think your point is well taken about the fact these guys have it used to be, like I said, they used to be the first 2 weeks of camp where it was almost attrition to get guys in shape, and the ones that didn't belong, you'd almost ship them out. So yeah, that makes total sense, and I think that with all the food and all the nutrition parts of things, all this world's a whole different world, and we see that as well. All right, look at we've talked and obviously a guy that we seem to talk about every week and probably be talking about every week for the rest of the year is Aidan O'Connell. He's a guy that has a lot on his shoulders. We've talked at the length about just what his summer has been like, but your impressions about him in camp and also just their confidence in him at that position and maybe where he could take Purdue from having it go up the ladder, so to speak, in the West Division.
Oh, they've got a lot of confidence in him. Jeff Bromwich started to express that when we were in Indianapolis for Media Day last month. I mean, why not? The guy's a sixth-year senior. He'll turn 24 years old on the night of Purdue's opener against Penn State on September 1st. He's mature, just got married, just a good guy. And he's a leader.
Yeah.
He's the kind of leader you want. Sets a good example on a lot of different levels, and he seems to be well-liked. So you have all those sort of intangibles, and you couple those with the skill set that we really got a glimpse of. We started to get a glimpse of the last couple of years, got a real full scope of that skill set. Of course, when he took over the number one job from Jack Plummer after the first 4 games of last year, and boy, what a run for Aidan O'Connell, right?
Yeah.
The numbers he put up for a guy who didn't start the first 4 games were stupefying. 9-win season. I mean, everybody knows the resume from last year for the team. It's very impressive. Aidan O'Connell, Allen, that decision to go with him as a starter is really what saved the season. Because if you remember, that defense was playing pretty well. Yeah. Played well all year, honestly. It was the offense that was lagging early on. Remember, they had that run where they only scored 13 points in like 3 games in a row.
Right.
Just real sluggish. And again, the move to O'Connell energized the offense. Allen, he's a guy I think they like because he was willing to take chances.
Yeah.
Wait for guys to get open, and he's going to throw some interceptions. We know that, but he's going to push the ball downfield and try to make plays downfield. And I think Jack Plummer could be a little bit hesitant. But again, Aidan O'Connell's got his problems. Number one being his athletic ability, which I think can be a little overblown. But overall, boy, the way he throws the football, Allen, Brian Brom said he's the most accurate quarterback he's ever worked with. This is a guy who's every bit of 6'3" and won a lot of games, been in the cauldron of big time competition. He's proven he can do it. I can't think of a better situation for Purdue.
You look at and yet he did throw 2 interceptions in the bowl game, but that snapped a streak of we think doing the research, it was the longest streak without throwing an interception in Purdue history. So he's shown that he can do it. Do you buy, though, as you look into the season, if you're a defensive coordinator for Penn State or Florida Atlantic or whoever that might be out there, what is there any chance he snuck up on some people last year? And that may be a silly thing to say because he did play in the previous seasons as well. But his level guy, he got to point. I guess my point is he's not going to sneak up on people this year. And no, there isn't David Bell, but Purdue's receiving core. We've talked about that to the nth degree. But what factor does that play? Does he have to raise his game a level to be at the same level that he was last year, which was, from a number standpoint, off the charts the last few weeks of the season?
Yeah, you always have to evolve, don't you, Alan? And he's got to continue to evolve. And I think you raised some good points, and the biggest being, can Aidan O'Connell continue to thrive without a seemingly elite wide receiver on the roster, right? David Bell's gone off to the NFL a year early, 3rd-round pick of the Browns. Of course, Milton Wright, an academic casualty. He was going to be the heir apparent there. So again, can Aidan O'Connell still put up those big numbers? I guess maybe I see the team too much and get to know it too well, but I think there's plenty of good options at receiver, Alan.
Yeah.
There may not be a 1st-round pick or a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick, but the key wideout is going to be keeping these guys healthy. It's been a battle in camp. Once again, Brock Thompson, Marshawn Rice, Abdur-Rahman Yassin, have all been guys that have been in and out of the lineup as they come off injury from last year. Can they stay healthy? A lot of excitement, though. If they keep those guys healthy, you couple in the 2 Iowa transfers, right? Tyrone Tracy and Charlie Jones. You got TJ Sheffield, number 8. You have a couple of nice redshirt freshmen and Preston Terrell and then Deion Burks. And then don't forget about 2 other guys who honestly, Alan, may have been the stars so far at camp, a wideout. Colin Sullivan, who would have thought that, right? And the kid from Auburn, Elijah Canyon. So it seems like I just talked about 20 guys, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And those are all guys who I think can legit play and help. So a lot of options there. Again, maybe not any 4.3 40 guys or, like I said, 1st-round draft choices, but boy, I think Aidan O'Connell has a nice array of weapons there at his disposal to wideout.
Charlie Jones is one you've been talking about a fair amount, writing about, certainly a guy that's really an intriguing guy and a guy that really could be a missing piece to what Purdue hasn't had. Of course, the transfer from Iowa shows that he can be in the return game, can help, can get away from people, came here hungry to catch a lot of footballs. That's really going to be interesting that not only him, but also Tyrone Tracy. These are 2 guys that really could make a big difference if they come to the fore, and every reason to believe they will.
Huge, Alan. I think your starting 3 wide receivers are going to be Brock Thompson, 1 outside slot. I think Charlie Jones is going to be the other outside receiver. And I think you'll see TJ Sheffield in the slot with Tyrone Tracy right on his hip. I think those would be your 4 top receivers. That's assuming that Brock Thompson stays healthy.
Right.
Again, he's really been in and out of camp. He had a titanium rod put in each shin in the off season. So it's a nice start. You factor in tight ends we talked about, and they like to throw to the running backs too. King Drew can catch the ball, and so can the kid from Central Michigan, Kobe Lewis. So again, some nice options there. And Tyrone Tracy, back to him real quick, Alan. Talked about him as a receiver. Remember, the plan is to utilize him to some degree as a ball carrier. How much every game, I'm not sure. I don't think you're going to see him carry it 10 or 12 times, but I think you're going to see Tyrone Tracy back there getting quick pitches and rounds, get him the ball in space to hand it to him, to add some athletic ability and speed and maybe big play ability to that running back core.
Now you're going to file a story after you talk to Jeff Brom on Saturday, but you start to formulate what position battles, what are some of the questions if you're holding the microphone as you stand right now, sit right now, that you want to ask him in terms of what things you want to see in a scrimmage in terms of separation. Are there really a lot of position battles where there's a real question of who is going to play? I mean, I know we have the injuries at cornerback to Trice and Brown, and that's a factor, but what do you see from that standpoint of what's really up for grabs?
I think the offense is pretty well set. I talked about the receivers. Maybe there could be some movement there. But I think those are probably your top four guys. Tight end, offensive line, I think is set. Quarterback, running back. King Drew's going to be the running back.
Yeah.
I need to temper my enthusiasm for Kobe Lewis. He still has a ways to go. Didn't play at all last year. Remember that he had the knee injury. So he's still a little rusty, I'm told. But this is King Drew's job. Defensively, I don't know if it really matters that much who starts on the line. I guess offensively, Alan, I'll be interested to ask Jeff Brom about the run game and the offensive line's ability to get a push there, especially if they do red zone drills, which I'm sure they will. When everybody in the stadium knows that you've got to gain 1 yard and you're going to run the football, and there was always moments in games in the season where you're in those moments, can you do it?
Yeah.
And so how's the line continue? Look, is it more physical? I'm eager to see that. And defensively, the pass rush situation without George Karlaftis, right?
Yeah.
They know there's no Karlaftis, right? But they think they've got some guys with some potential to bring the heat. Remember this too, Alan. George Karlaftis attracted a lot of attention, which benefited his teammates. That attention is now gone. Would Branson Dean still be as effective as he was last year? Things like that will be interesting. Now, from a bring the heat standpoint, off the edge, Kydron Jenkins, Scotty Humpich from Murray State, good-looking guy. Maybe he can be a pass rusher at the other end spot. Don't sleep on Jack Sullivan, the fifth-year senior, who's better than people think. But the real guy on that side, Alan, is Corday Sidner, number 96. He looks the part, every bit of 6'4", 6'5", and had a nice spring. He's had a nice camp. He could be a guy off the edge opposite the Leo who could really be a difference maker and get after quarterbacks this fall.
It's going to be I've not been around many Purdue teams where the general feeling is positive about what you're going to see, but trying to see guys become playmakers and be forced to be playmakers. Some of them may have not been playmakers because they haven't had to. They've had other, the David Bells and the George Karlaftis is in front of them. So that will be an interesting thing to watch develop as time goes on. Anything else that jumps out at you in terms of what we might see over the next couple of weeks as Purdue gets ready for Penn State?
Yeah, you talked about the defensive backs a little bit. I mean, again, I'm not sure how much we're going to really see the number one unit in the back end in this scrimmage on Saturday. I think they're still going to take it easy with Corey Trice and Jamari Brown. The idea, I think, is just to try to get those guys a couple of weeks of practice here at the very end, leading into the Penn State game. Corey Trice has still been practicing with a brace on his left knee. Yeah, he's a good-looking guy, Alan. He may be a pro. Jamari Brown's a little slimmed up. He looks good too. Reese Taylor from Indiana has had a great camp. Some ways, I think he's going to probably start the opener. A lot of experience down in Bloomington. He's a good athlete as well. T. Denson from Kansas State, Allen. He had the double sports hernia surgery. Slow to recover. It's a tough injury, tough surgery. He may not be ready till September, but he's a guy they like at cornerback as well. So, if they got those cornerbacks healthy, that's a nice group. But when will they be healthy and can they stay healthy is going to be the real key back there. And remember this too, Alan. D-backs usually only as good as the pass rush, right?
Yeah.
Just talked about the pass rush, and the Boilers got to generate some heat so those guys don't have to try to cover people for too long.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, of all of our years of watching Purdue football, I haven't had, if you include Brown and Trice, a group of corners that look the part. I mean, Purdue's got size back there.
They do. You're right.
There's been years where it's been 5'10", 5'11". Not that those guys can't play, but you've got guys that look like Ohio State corners in terms of size, at least.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Corey Trice, 6'3". I mean, that's an NFL cornerback. And I think he probably is going to get a long look by the pros if he can have a nice year and stay healthy. Jamari Brown's at least 6'1", 185, 190. Reese Taylor's a little smaller. Corey Denson's or T. Denson's a little bit bigger. You know, he's close to 6 feet tall, but you're right. You got to have big guys to match up with some of those big physical wide receivers in the Big Ten, and they've got it. Now it's safety. You know, they're waiting on Sanusi Kane to get healthy, but they've got Chris Jefferson and Cam Allen back there, a savvy tandem. And we haven't talked about Jalen Graham yet either. Jalen had a little bit of a scare on Tuesday, Alan. Had a slight strain of his left hamstring, sort of hobbled off the field and left, came back and was walking around, has not participated the last 2 days. No shock there. They're going to take it easy with Jalen. Not much to prove there, but he's your strong side linebacker, a guy probably never going to leave the field. Can play in the back end as a safety or can play closer to the line as a linebacker. Just a really dynamic, multifunctional player who's going to be probably the best player on defense this year and an all Big Ten candidate. So he's obviously the leader linebacker. I think you'll have Kieran Douglas starting in the middle and Samisi Fakasieki on the weak side. Fakasieki, Alan, this is his 7th year.
Yeah.
This is Kieran Douglas' 6th year. We were talking to Samisi yesterday or earlier this week. He got to Purdue in 2016.
Yeah.
And I said, I wrote some. Barack Obama was the president. The Kozik football complex was under construction. Ross-Ade Stadium didn't have lights yet. And Jeff Brom is coaching Western Kentucky. And his position coach at Purdue in 2016 was Marcus Freeman, who's now the coach at Notre Dame. And Samisi is still in West Lafayette. And just a real fun, enjoyable guy. And you just hope he can stay healthy and enjoy a good year.
Yeah, he was a camp casualty last year, as I recall. Put him out for the year, and that's it. So many great storylines, and Tom, you're doing a great job. Appreciate all you're doing to bring it to life. I know that you more than most are just looking to get this thing started so we can actually talk about games and what's going on and teams and who they're going to play. Going to be an interesting year from that. So we'll be hitting that a lot more on the site as we get closer to that. By the time this recording hits our site, we'll be 12. Is it 12 days? No, well, it's 19 days away from that first game. So, we're getting there. I can't count on the calendar either. So Tom, thanks so much. I want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel. And of course, we invite you to not only like us, subscribe to us, I should say, on YouTube, and also give us a comment about our programming. We appreciate that. We'll probably, in all likelihood, Brian Newbert will be back to join us, talk a little bit about recruiting and basketball as we get into later August as well for next week. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks for watching or listening. And we'll look forward to our next edition of our Saturday conversation. It is going to be getting closer and closer to game time. Have a great week, everybody.